discretion is advised.
What's the true fact that leads to scary thoughts? Serious. Submarines nowadays are really stealthy. There was a situation, if I remember correctly, in the 60s or around the 70s where two submarines almost collided. Now imagine one country deciding to launch a ballistic missile that could wipe out a city or small town on a sub like that. It's a fact most cities, particularly big cities, have websites where you can look up who has committed crimes around you. Don't do it though. You will find out there are endless predators living right next to you. In simple terms, a cancer cell is a cell that is damaged or not working properly, which leads to rapid division and abnormal mass growth. Our body has mechanisms to kill cells that aren't doing their job properly, and every day, non-stop, our body looks for them and kills them. The problem of cancer are not the damaged cells, is that our body missed one pesky lit shitty damaged cell, and now it is divided and replicated and turning into a growing mass. Since the moment we are born, we have these faulty cells, and since the moment we are born our body works to correct it by killing them every single day until you die, and for some people, until a day that it misses one and all hell breaks. The brain-eating amoeba's mere existence. I think the fact that you can just go swimming one day and die some days or weeks after that, just because a small ass unicellular being entered your nose and started eating your nervous system, is frankly terrifying. Talking to someone and never batting an eye on whether or not it'll be the last conversation you have with them. Edit. Wow, thanks for all the upvotes. This is my first Reddit thing ever. Anyways, a lot of people posted their story, so I wanna share mine. Had this friend who I was very close in the summer and we drifted away, but we were still very close. One day I got a new phone and new number, and later that day I found out she died the night prior in a car accident. I wasn't able to message her friends and ask how they were, since I had a new number and the verification code was sent to my old one. Hurt me a lot, since they were always there when I needed them. After the incident, I'd sometimes text her phone number as a way to talk to her and send her updates on my gaming setup, since before we'd always talk about it and she'd ask to be the first to see it. She was like 14 when she died. The phrase "I won't eat you," the Russian equivalent of "I don't bite," comes from the blockade of Leningrad, when the Nazis blockaded the city and there was such hunger that, you know, it's used casually today. The giant huntsman spider, scientific name Heteropoda maxima, found in Laos, is a species of huntsman spider spiratidae, a family of large, fast spiders that actively hunt down prey. It is considered the world's largest spider by leg span, which can reach up to 30 centimeters 1 foot. Global warming is assisting certain fungus to become more adapted to warmer temperatures, and there are now many documented cases worldwide of deadly, often untreatable fungal infections in humans. In the past, our body temperature was high enough to prevent the fungus from surviving. The next pandemic won't be viral, but likely fungal. Enough of your personal information is accessible to apps and websites for them to predict your political views, tastes, and personal opinions enough to recommend content that they know you'll be swayed by. There's also some sites that sell your data, and some that can predict your future based on your background and interests. Statistically, you will directly encounter 34 to 38 people who have murdered, not killed, i.e., killed in war combat, accidentally killed in a car accident, inadvertently caused a death, etc. another human being during the course of your lifetime. In just the United States, there are likely between 2,200 and 2,400 serial killers. However, there are only about 75 known serial killers across the US. Most of the other ones suspected to exist have simply not been recognized due to a variety of factors: bodies not found, bodies attributed to other killers, or mechanism of illness, injury, poor police work, or interdepartmental jealousies causing a lack of communication between state and federal agencies, poor record keeping, overwhelmed forensic and pathology professionals, especially now during the time of COVID, long periods of time between death and discovery masking the manner of death or mechanisms of injury, etc. Serial killers have gotten smarter and more capable over the years. Books about serial killers and their methodology are exceedingly popular. And while most people who read this material will never hurt anyone, active or burgeoning serial murderers are also huge fans. They learn what has worked before, how other murderers were caught, and how to pick and stalk victims effectively. They use such literature as murder primers. They also consume volumes of material on law enforcement, investigative methods and forensic science, while a lot of more recent methods and material are held back from the public. Enough information is generally available that the one and done killer may get capable enough to collect many victims before they are caught. California has a moderately high number of serial murderers, but only because their population dwarfs that of most other states. On a per 100k people basis, Ohio and Alaska have serial murder rates that put California to shame. Speaking of Ohio, just Cleveland and Cincinnati likely have between 16 and 20 active serial killers right now who have taken victims within the last 2 years. Ironically, the COVID-19 pandemic has almost certainly saved the lives of certain people who absolutely would have died otherwise had their stalker killer been able to carry out his/her usual hunting activities. Yes, there are female serial killers, although they are significantly outnumbered by their male counterparts. It's currently estimated that there are approximately 24 such women in the US. Most of those are working in tandem with a male partner, but there are suspected to be a very few in the single digits who are operating completely autonomously. Female serial killers tend to be poisoners, including intentional drug overdoses, but there have been female multiple murderers who have been known to employ guns, knives, garrotes, or other weapons to stalk and kill physically. Females are also much more likely to be personally known by their victims. Male serial killers tend to choose and stalk victims from afar without making themselves known. The medical field is extremely attractive to those with murderous intent. Doctors and nurses are surrounded by possible victims who are already in an injured, ill, or otherwise weakened state, and whose death might not draw any attention attributed to natural causes. Even worse, medical killers have a plethora of substances and mechanisms available to them which may not be identified even during autopsy, unless a pathologist is specifically looking for them. Two exceedingly popular methods are the use of insulin or succinylcholine as murder weapons. Both of these drugs metabolize very quickly into chemicals, which occur naturally within the body, and can be very hard to identify as aberrant during post-mortem. For anyone who read all the way through this, good luck ever sleeping again. Also, don't take my word for it. A lot of this information is available online, and the behavioral science unit at Quantico has produced thousands of pages of material related to exactly this subject matter, and their descriptions are substantially more vivid than what I've offered here. The universe is 14 billion years old. Humans have been around for a small fraction of that time. During this time there could have been thousands of alien civilizations that rised and fell, and some may have prospered. And yet, for all we know about the universe, we often consider ourselves the center of everything, even though our planet is just a grain of sand that is the desert of existence. Life is a genetic lottery, and many of our choices and outcomes, educational, professional, romantic, ethical, economic, personality, etc., are largely predetermined and lie outside our own control. And if reincarnation isn't real, you only get one life. You will never get to experience a life outside your own. There are done things you will simply never have the option of doing. Things you may want to do, but will never be able to because you were born with limitations that you can't choose. There are boundaries that other people exist outside of that you will never cross. It's heartbreaking that there are endless possible experiences to be had in this world and we only get a very small sliver of them. How many people can you name who lived over 100 years ago? Probably a lot. What about 300 years ago? Some I'm sure. 500 years ago? 1000. 2000. As more time passes, more and more people are forgotten. Very few will have their names live on. Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, Julius Caesar, Cleopatra. For the vast majority of people, There will be a time in which it's the last time someone has said your name or thought of you after you die, and you will be forgotten like the other 99.999% of humanity. Reality exists entirely exterior to the way our brains are coded to understand it. We are using tools developed for understanding our surroundings as hunter-gatherers in forests and plains to try and navigate the whole world, space, complex social institutions, abstract concepts, and powers beyond our own. The universe is like the world, and we are like the puppy on a leash. Our instincts, the limitations of our senses, the limits of our mental computation ability, and our tendency to view things through the lens of our own biological human needs. These things shield us from viewing the universe as causal, empty, indifferent, and terribly beautiful. We can't ever escape the limits of our minds. If we were to ever create an artificial intelligence capable of viewing reality objectively, its first words to us would feel empty and estranged, as if we'd given birth to a cold newborn that does not cry, does not eat, does not breathe, and yet lives, looking at the world around it with cold, dead eyes. Years seem to take a long time while you're in them. When you were young, next year seemed forever away, but the older you get, the faster time moves. Now years seem slip past in weeks, like a river sliding past a boulder. Statistically speaking, every doctor you have seen has made a mistake while practicing. Be thankful it wasn't you, or that the nurses or pharmacists or computer program caught it in time. They'll never tell you though. Everything you see around you will, at some point in the future, be destroyed. From the phone you're reading this on, the house you live in, the furniture, the streets, everything. It'll all wear down in ruins. Even the earth. It'll eventually crumble away, or get burned up in the wrath of the red giant, those old Roman ruins. That will happen to our cities. It's only a matter of time, and there's no telling when. The simulation hypothesis. Yes, the Matrix kind. Only we are not real, but rather components of an extremely advanced artificial simulation. The thought is that, if the species survives to become advanced enough, that they will be able to model a universe, if less expansive and detailed than their own. You take that to the next logical conclusion, that if such a originator species is able to do so, theoretically if they ran enough simulations a race in those simulations would be able to do the same, etc. etc. The hypothesis being that, if it is possible to create a simulation of reality that we experience, we are most certainly living in one statistically. The only question is whether it's possible. If advanced enough, those that favor the proposal posit that extreme limits of reality as we know them, Planck length, the speed of light, the visible universe via the total universe, because of early expansion are aspects of our simulation's resolution. Your dog probably cannot understand you, and doesn't know what's going on when it's being put down, and why you're crying and petting them so much. They're probably very happy that you're petting them, which, in your perspective, is good. But for me, I feel like, if my dog could understand what I was saying for 30 seconds, I would be so much more comfortable with the thought of one day coming home to him not jumping on me and getting his fur all over my clothes. It's really depressing for me and makes me cry a lot, but hey, that's life, isn't it? We've got to be strong and move forward. My dog is 8, so I think he's still got a few years left in him, I hope, but I'm not ready for the day I'll hold him in my arms crying. You will die one day. You have no idea how and when, but at some point, everything you've made, everything you've achieved and all the relations you've built up will be for nothing at the certain point of you being dead. The average person has about 200 years of being known, part of their own lifetime up through the end of the life of the ones who were children, when they were old. Very few people, and I mean a fraction of the population, manages beyond that, and that number drops the further from their lifetime we go. Unless you do something worth remembering, a plastic bag will have a longer legacy than you. The fact that one day, all of your memories and your thoughts will be lost forever, gone. Every great vacation you had, every regret you had, at first, you put this thought in the back of your head. But for me, I slowly started to rethink my life choices and who I was. Knowing that in 1,000 years, no one knows who you are, makes me feel like life is pointless. And it scares me to death about this. You want scary thoughts? Well, try going to sleep knowing that at any moment all could end. Cosmic rays and huge explosions could have happened suddenly really far away in the universe. And since most of this travels at the speed of light, we would only know when we are already burning to death. That one day, my bones will be dust in the ground. This house will be occupied by someone else or sold. Everyone I've ever loved or talked to at some point will wake up for the last time. My soon-to-be ex-wife, us now on separate paths. At a time we once were life partners, but as I'm trying to live mine she's living hers. And one day she'll be gone. Lying on her deathbed. Will she think about me? Will anyone I've loved think of me? I'm gonna die. You're going to die. My parents will die. All of us. One day. My first visit out of the US. Actually I was seeing my wife then. We went and visited her hometown. Walking around this ancient Scottish little city I spotted a graveyard with a big rundown very old church. I walked in and saw tombstones dated from the 1400s. That moment. Right there. 22 years old. Eyes locked with this old decrepit grave. It all hit me. All of that. Someone at some point was standing in this same spot mourning for this person. Centuries ago. They are gone too now. And so on and so on. Live your life. We are here for a very short amount of time yet we all act as if we are immortal. I woke up feeling really apathetic today. God, I miss my wife. Hey man, I'm sorry about you and your ex-wife. I get how hard it is and how depressing it is about going different paths. I was with someone for the better part of a decade and even now, when I think about how we were a unit together moving toward the same goals and now we are on two completely different roads that might not meet again. It's been a few years and things do get better, but it's hard when I think about it like that. On the bright side you'll meet someone new, and you'll both be working toward the same things again, so it becomes a new adventure with someone. It might not sound as great and easy, but learning new things about yourself and someone else is at least a worthy endeavor. Cannibalism is legal in the US, but the way you obtain the body is illegal. The scary thing is you could just drop dead and someone might just be like, damn, that body be looking tasty and eat you. Realizing how insignificant you're in the universe. How there's millions of galaxies out there, and how there is a possibility of alternate universes as well. Trying to make your mark on the world when so many great advancements have been made always gets me discouraged. Life can end at any point in time, and you might never know it. You could be walking down the street and a semi with malfunctioning brakes could come barreling down the road and hit you at 50 miles per hour. You'd never know what hit you. You could be babysitting younger siblings at home while your parents go on a date, and they might never come back home. It's really scary. Cherish life. People. I know everyone says it, but it really is precious. Think about it. School is horribly under-preparing people for the real world. Kids are being thrown out into the world knowing that mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, but not knowing basic first aid. Not knowing how to get a job. Not knowing how to hold down a job. Not knowing how to file taxes. And so many more things. The political system has already gone to shit. So can we please get the education system done reform? Click subscribe. If you enjoyed this video,